outside of our door. And so I said, we can talk about that. So Joe, this is Montclair, though. This is not Penn State.
It was at the College of New Jersey, too, the same thing when I was in undergrad.
Everyone's starting to believe that concept.
Okay, so how do you compare? This is by the Social Norms Project, sponsored by the Department of Health Promotion. I guess this is our Department of Health Promotion.
Yes, so.
Or else it's the state one, or whatever. Then you've got some comments already.
How do I compare?
So, no, it's not what we're asking. Most MSU students have 0 to 4 drinks when they go out. Now, you did an article about this, but that was Penn State.
That was, it was conducted at Penn State in 2003.
And it was the same thing.
Same thing. They had the exact same message. Everyone knew about it, but did not believe it one bit. Only 27% of the people believed the actual message.
Yeah, okay, so they did research who believes this to be the case. Now, from a research methodology perspective, could you figure some things out? I mean, what would you have to do to answer that question? Someone comes to you and says, well, that's not right.
Just do a survey on campus.
Okay, you would have to do, because the population considered as MSU students, you would have to do either a census, which means you have to talk to everybody, or you'd have to do a statistically significant random sample so that you could generalize to the whole population. So just thinking method for a minute here.
Yeah, I'd want to get, like you said, a significant sample because, I mean, if you go into certain dorms, you'll get different results.
Right.
Highly different. I mean, if you go ask the football team, you'll get something different than, not the, the soccer team or the baseball team or,
Right.
Any athlete. Or if you go to, somewhere else, you may get something different than, the fraternities and
Right.
classroom.
Yeah, you have to randomize your sample.
I guess so.
You maybe stratify it but you have to randomize it because that's required in scientific methodology for making generalizations about whole populations. So, right. So there's a number of communication theories at work here. So that's what I want to spend some time on. So let's try to identify some of the comm theories, and you got a list of comm theories there. So let's say some of them. What's that? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can I just say before we do that, that's the semiotics. Whenever you look at something, you can usually always tell if it's made by a girl or not. Because of the colors,
You're gonna make a gender?
No, it's awful, but you can usually always tell because it's these little pinks and blues and purples.
Kind of a dusty rose, maybe.
Well,
I don't know that you can make that kind of generalization.
but it's a signifier that has a signified.
Yes, but usually
For her.
it works the other way around. If you're going to use colors, you're going to use it to reach to the public and not to it's going to reflect
Like
the
visual
public, but not
choice.
reflect you.
Depends.
The one who made it.
Who's doing it?
I don't know. Usually, every time I see something and I say, did a girl make that? And people are usually, can you find out if a boy or a girl made that?
I'm not going to spend the time to find out.
It's probably a girl. Because if you guys were going to make a thing, what colors do you use? Reds and darker blues and pinks?
But it's not.
No.
You don't make your choice based on your.
Well, I did this with the undergraduate class today, and about a fourth of them, when they first saw this, if they didn't read it, they just saw it, they thought it was a sexual health message
About an egg.
about pregnancy.
Right.
Yeah. Because the blue and the pink, they thought men and women, and they were thinking about, so they said just the semiotic visual of it made the signifier of the sign made them think this is going to be about sexual health, pregnancy, public service announcement. So that was
Could
interesting.
be anything, could be like how.
But
How do you compare, my God? You know,
I
if you were from
understand.
another country and you looked at that, there's nothing about it that would tell you it was about drinking well, and in an immediate
Right.
hit.
right, but
Walking by.
so what we're after here is there's a comm theory class. This is a communication piece. This is a communication artifact. And there are a number of theories that help us to describe and explain what's going on here. So one of them is the semiotic. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, part of it, I think the colors, I mean, just, it gets your attention, so that might be
Right.
one of them.
So it's possible that the bright,
Yeah.
contrasting colors are meant to just capture your attention.
Yeah, the circles, and it's just all, it's a little wacky kind of thing.
Right.
It gets you to look at it.
And so what theory of communication would say that rather than having people brush by something and just see it and go on, they want to capture the attention and have you focus on it and think about it? Is there a communication theory about that? It's a socio-psychological theory of cognitive processing. Yeah, I mean, we didn't do as much Little John as we did Craig, but there's something, we did it on the elaboration likelihood, central processing, peripheral processing. So it's kind of a persuasion theory in the socio-psychological realm that says that if you process a message centrally, there's more likelihood that it will have an attitude change than if you process it peripherally, where you just glance at it, you read it, say, oh yeah. But this may be designed so that it's ambiguous, so you're curious and you go back to it, and instead of peripherally processing, you centrally process. You try to make sense of it. So it's possible that from an elaboration likelihood theory, that this is an effective piece. So again, elaboration likelihood would be a way to do some analysis of this, and you could ask people and test people to see. Because with the semiotic perspective, you ask the question, well, what if it were different? What if they had a bar graph, instead, of people 0 to 4, 5, 6, 8, 12, or what if they did a visual graphic with beer things or wine glasses, that got smaller and smaller. Semiotics asks us to ask the question, why this instead of this instead of this?
I think the wine glasses would be better than the bar graph. The bar graph would look like anything. It could look like, the maintenance schedule for the week. And nobody would even pay attention unless they felt like looking at it. The wine glasses might get some people's attention.
Okay.
This certainly got ours.
All right. Yeah, see, my question from elaboration likelihood would be, would I be more likely to say, oh yeah, I know what that's about, and I would just peripherally process it. Whereas this, I'm like, what's that? So again, it becomes a question. And if you were a public relations person doing, and you're in a focus group and you've got two versions of this, you would want to get reaction from people about what do they do with it, which they say, oh yeah, I know what that's about. I don't have to pay attention to that. So they're like, well, I don't understand what that is. You would use research to figure out which is the more effective one. Joe, do you have a thought?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
It's pretty much summing it up because I just don't believe the message at all. So it's hard for me to even look at it. If I come by something like that, I'll look at it real quick and then look. Okay, students have 0, whatever, and walk by. I'm not going to try to understand it. If I saw the
Wine glasses
and such, I would probably look at it a little bit more because it's something I haven't seen before,
Okay.
and then probably I would probably process that one more so than that.
But as a comm expert or as a professional comm person, you may be someday in a group where you got to decide we're going to invest $500,000 in this campaign. Which one of these do we want to use? You know, and so you want to have some theory behind it to say, well, I'm going to argue for this one because elaboration likelihood theory says blah, 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 you know, and use some empirical research to justify where we're going to invest our $500,000.
I don't know like the theory of it, but in advertising they tell you, I think it's like 3.5 seconds or something, and usually people just read the headline and look at the picture. So that might get people to stop and like read it more if they had the time. But by the same token, like if you saw the beer glasses or the wine glasses or whatever, you would know what it is really quick, and then so you would at least see that it was like okay, and you would know what the message was about. But like you said, your undergrads thought it was about like pregnancy or something.
Right.
Like you don't even know what the message is by looking at that if you don't stop to read it. Where at least with the other one, you would kind of get half the message. It may not like be the full thing, but at least you got part of it compared to nothing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, right, if you were to remove this symbol, the word drinks, it would become totally ambiguous. You would have no idea, you know, what's going on. They go to 04 bars,
Yeah, you could remove the word drinks and it would still be a sentence and people wouldn't know what it was about.
you would have no idea.
Yeah.
Right, so this, from a semiotic perspective, this part, this caption, is critical to its interpretation.
You buried the lead.
Well, and there may be a strategy to that, you know. Yeah. So far we've got some semiotic theory that talks about design, it talks about colors, it talks about the use of the circles.
I mean, this is taking it far off. What about kind of thinking about it critically where, oh, they want me to be within the norm of everybody.
Yes.
So I'm not. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to listen to what they have to say.
Right, so are there theories that say people want to be with the norm? They want to be, I mean, this is a persuasion piece, and the persuasive effect of it is to say, you want to be normal, and this is what's normal.
I would say it's from a rhetorical perspective, it's exactly the wrong population to try that approach on. That, as you know, even though probably half the kids here are wearing the same jeans and listening.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conformity.
But it's not. They wouldn't say, "I'm doing this because I really want to fit in." They would say something else. But I mean, I don't know what these kids are up to. But I don't think that they would desire to be in
Normal.
the normal partying
No.
group.
No, I see an awful lot of conformity.
Around that though, around rebellion.
Well, I tell you, I had a reflection just recently from a student who was talking about her friend came by to talk, and she showed up with her Coach handbag, her new cell phone, and her UGG boots.
Right.
You know,
right, yeah.
and walked in,
Yeah.
you know, and talked about how she's trying to get in with a group at school, so this is the stuff she has to have to get in with that group. And I was like, somewhere I got onto another planet, you know, and I missed it, you know. But that's what's going on, at least for some people.
But isn't that a symbol, drinking a symbol of rebellion in some way?
Or kind of what Joseph
Well, it's a
asked.
semiotic question. What does it signifier and signified?
Also kind of what Joseph like last week. If they go to a place and everyone else is having more than 4 drinks, if they're trying so hard to fit in, the place that they'd be, wouldn't it be like more with the people that they're at? Instead of like
That's a question. How effective are public health campaigns?
Yeah, because what it said actually was that people base how many drinks they have based on their friends, not on what they're trying to sell to you.
Right.
So if your friends smoke and they say smoking's bad, they're going to smoke because they're friends.
Because they're friends. So that from a communication perspective, then the persuasive message of this is less effective in some settings than personal connections. which is true if you think about innovation change, when they do research about changing in organizations and adopting innovations. You know, you can put out newsletters about it, you can put out posters about it, but the way they found out that there are key people, who once they accept the innovations, their friends accept the innovations. It's a social network issue, not a public information issue.
Because
So-
everyone said that they were aware of it, but their friends drank more, so
Right.
they drank more. And they
So
assumed
again-
that since their friends drank more, everyone else drank more.
So it becomes a diffusion of innovation question in comm studies, and research says different things, right? I don't know. This has obviously not been invested with $500,000 in doing
I
this.
was gonna say before that it looks like a social issue also, but I think it'll also be like a cultural issue. Like I know that I'm Greek and like I go to a lot of the Greek clubs and we drink a lot, but that's just the norm for us. Like a lot of Greeks smoke, so I don't smoke, but I know friends that don't smoke, but they'll go to the clubs because they're bored, they'll start smoking because they want to kind of fit into the crowd because they see everyone else smoking and drinking. They're like, well, I'm not going to be like that, so I'm going to smoke and drink too.
Right.
So it's like a social, cultural thing, I think, also.
Yeah. Yeah, so from a comm studies perspective, there's a lot of research about public health. Health communication is a big field now. And so these theories all play into that. Let me get Ben and then I'll come.
Well, I kind of agree with both. I think it's social, cultural, and also critical though, because they have the power here in that each individual student can't put up, I mean, I guess they could, but put up a newsletter like this.
Now there's the power stamp. It's stamped by the SGO or whatever. I don't know, SGA, whatever.
Right. So given that they have this power, that they can go around campus and put all these things up and do this, I mean, so certainly there's something to that, but I don't think they do enough with it if their goal is to get people to stop drinking, because they don't give them any alternative.
Well, yeah, again, so you would ask, whose interest would it be in that students only drink 0 to 4 drinks?
Right. And if it's in the interest of like just the greater good, or Montclair's good, then they really should give them something, somewhere else to go with it. Because here it just says, be cool, and it doesn't even say that, it just says, how do you compare?
Right, so the theory behind this is that people constantly compare themselves to others and want to be in the norm. That's the dynamic at the root of this implicit theory here.
Right, and that you should just stop drinking or you should drink 0 to 4 drinks just so you can be in the norm.
And here's the thing, they're not even saying to stop drinking.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
I was just thinking that, like, is the message.
Oh, it's okay to drink.
Well, one of the other questions that came up was, why is it they lump 0 to 4? If you were to break this up, it might be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. That would look significantly less
Maybe that's why.
impressive than this does. You know, so
So somebody decided that 4 represents the trouble point? Like
I guess.
when people start getting pregnant and crashing their cars.
my health insurance company sets 2
Yeah, right.
as the that's what they ask before they raise you their rates.
Nice, I know what to put down there.
2. So, yeah. But again, you just see that theory, there's a lot of theory here. There's theories of visual images, there's design theory about what's most effective. You know, for some people, probably this with some text citing the study and the correlations and the sample size would be a more effective message for a given population of people. Others, this might be more effective. For some reason, they chose this. And
One other thing that they actually called for was a diversity of attacks on drinking, as
Yes.
opposed to so instead of just using one way of communicating a message, they say, why not use it all?
Right,
that it
do this one
matches
and this one,
everything.
take the
Exactly.
same
Instead of
data.
just saying, oh, this one works the best.
Do it differently.
Well, that works the best for this demographic, but then
Yeah.
this could work the best for here, so why not just release it all?
Right. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen this yet, but I've heard of groups that are designing multiple websites with the same content, but different style, templates, different CSS templates. You can do this with cascading style sheets. And so you could say, how old, when you hit our site, how old are you? Do some demographic stuff, and then direct them to a CSS site that has exactly the same content, but is a different colors, different arrangement, different graphics that are used. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, rhetorically, like, I think, I'm not sure which, I could be mistaken, but Joe, last week said that it was like did you say that it was true or not, or didn't you say that they like made it up when you did your presentation?
The 0 to 4.
The 0 to 4, that they made that up to see how well it caught on?
Pretty much.
So
What
if
they
it-
said actually was that they did research, and the research that they did originally said that 0 to 4 people drink. And then they tested that after it was out there in the public and found that it wasn't true.
So like, you hang up a sign that says this now, but now like if someone walks by and really doesn't believe it, the credibility, like, okay, it came from, what's it called, like SGA?
You'd have to really look hard though to see who it
But
came
when you
from.
see these posters, like maybe next time when you see, so you can see that that's not from another place, that it's like a Montclair printed, hung up poster. So next time you see a poster from Montclair or something saying it, you might not believe it as much, even if that is,
Well, that's a
100%
theory.
true.
That's a theory, and
But like, it makes you question, like if you believe it, then you like might believe the next one. But if you're someone who's like really dead set against, like Joe, who really just doesn't believe it at all, next time you see it, you might be like, okay, well the other one said 0 to 4, and I'm not so sure about that. So what about this? Like,
well, but
the credibility.
this is the question of either or both and. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but part of the concept is that in today's world, well, like Joe said, don't just say, well, we're going to do this one or this one. Do both of them. Do 5 of them, because you have such a variety of target audiences. Instead of saying, well, it's either this one or that one, you're better off to say, well, it's both this one and this one and this one and this one. And so don't get caught up in a mental model. This is from systems theory, a mental model that says we have to do either this or that. You got to step outside of that model and say, we can do multiple things. And that frees up the possibilities of it. But I don't know, Lisa, it would be a theory and a research question to know, is the effect of this in the net result positive or negative, given the possibility that it reduces people's confidence in the source, the ethos of the source? Or is it the old adage, there's no such thing as bad publicity, and that once it's out there, people eventually will forget stuff and it'll still impact them at some point. And there's a theory of communication called the spiral of silence theory that says that once people know what most people think, they don't want to be known as saying something different because they're afraid of being alienated and ostracized. So I mean, that theory would say, if we can just get this idea out there into people's minds that most people are like this, then other forces will kick in that will make people conform towards that. Even if they don't do it, they'll say they do it, and then they'll be pushed towards it.
Does that work for consumers also?
I would expect so.
Use that in marketing?
It could be, I don't know that. But there's the cognitive dissonance too. So if I'm over here saying, I actually drink 12 drinks when I go out, and I'm saying to someone, no, I only drink 4. Yeah, I'm just like everyone else. I just drink 4. And now I have a cognitive dissonance set up. according to Fessinger's theory. And so now I have to deal with that. And I either deal with it by changing my behavior, or else I stop saying a lie, or I just don't even, I think, well, it's a silly lie, so it doesn't matter. So I have to deal with my dissonance somehow, right? But see, this is as a grad comm student, now you're getting you can think about these things instead of just saying anecdotes. You need a theoretically researched, theory and research feed on each other. You have a theory, you test it, you refine your theory. So these are not just people think this, these are based on research. So, all right. So Splenda's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell it? Because then, I could tell it, but this was a Jeff original. This is copyrighted, so you may not use this or perform it without proper remuneration.
It's a crazy, small, silly story that impacted on my quality of life. At the community college where I work, there's a coffee shop like any other place, and I was, I've been there at this place working for 11 years, and there was a young woman who worked there who got promoted suddenly to manager of the coffee shop. And I noticed that she was kind of looking at me every time I went in, whenever I was putting my Splenda in my coffee, she was giving me kind of the evil eye. And and I put a lot of Splenda in my coffee, right? Like a ridiculous amount of Splenda in my coffee. So finally, she just said, "You got to stop it with the Splenda." And I said, I couldn't even believe it. And I said, well, what's the problem? You're using up all the Splenda. So I didn't pay much attention. I was on my way to a class, and so I left. I came back. The next time I came back, the Splenda's gone. And there is no Splenda there. Only sugar, right? And I actually am not supposed to have sugar, right? So it actually meant something, And I looked, there's no Splenda. She was waiting all week for me to walk in and see there was no Splenda. It was obvious because when I walked in, I saw her just like washing, like a mug or something, and just watching me take in the absence of Splenda. And I looked down, I looked up, and it was like, it was pleasing to her, and she said, well, that's what happens. That's what happens when you use all the Splenda. And so some time passed, and I came back again, and again, I haven't been there in like 3 months, and I go to put Splenda, there's Splenda again, so I go to put the Splenda. There you go with the Splenda, and I said, that's it. I said, what? So you're telling me that for 3 months people have been coming in here.
He tells me it's a true story.
Yeah, this is true, right? People are coming in here using the Splenda. No problem. Thousands of packets of Splenda. I come in once in 3 months. Suddenly, the Splenda is a problem, right? And she said, basically, yeah. and I said, well, but aren't I paying for the Splenda when I buy the coffee, which is like ridiculously expensive? And she said, no. When you pay for the coffee, you're paying for the coffee. And I didn't even, I couldn't go. I was starting to see red at that point, right? So I stepped out of it. But what I realized is that we'd become polarized over the issue of Splenda, that it wasn't just Splenda to her, it meant something. The Splenda was like, I was taking money out of the royal coffers or something, like if she felt like I was taking something from her and she had less of something. And it wasn't just about Splenda, so I wrote that.
Yeah, it was a nice reflection. So let's talk about it. So there's communication, right? There's a problem, and communication is engaged in the problem, and there are symbols involved here, right? So let's do some analysis of this from a theoretical standpoint. So what theories could we bring into play here? We could bring some semiotics.
So critical, now that we've learned about critical.
Critical. I want to suggest another, I think we got some coordinated management of meaning going on here.
Socio-psychological?
Okay, we got some social psych. What else might we use to describe, to explain?
I don't understand how semiotics works with it. I'm sorry.
We'll do it.
Okay.
We'll do it. We're going to go into it. So I'm just trying to get a feel for what. See, what are the you ask yourself, what are the dynamics going on, and what theories address those dynamics?
Well,
Go ahead, Melissa.
I just have a thought running through my head, and I don't have it completely worked out, but if she waited until she got the promotion to talk to you about it, is it some sort of cybernetic power
You know, it was in
situation?
there before